me, can you just send me a really casual video of you? The next thing I know, it's on every biggest stage ever. I released it just like a kind of piano vocal song. Pull me out of this. Fred messaged me, I really love this song. Can I make my own version? Yeah, do whatever you want to do. He ended up chopping the version.
Yeah.
He did this Boiler Room set and it went so viral. Pull Me Out of This from that set. Everybody seemed to love it. He texted me, can you just send me a really casual video of you singing the song? And I'm like, yeah, and I remember I just got out of the shower. He really misled me, which is probably for the best. And then the next thing I know, it's on every biggest stage ever. I released it just like a kind of piano vocal song. Pull me out.
Once you spend nicotine and on a monthly...
What's up, Gibby? Good to see you, man. Welcome. Stickle Winks, how you doing? Good to see you, man. Hope things are going well, dude. Hope the progress on the circuit board is doing good. All that jazz. I am being an idiot. Resistor shaped sound. Jesus. I don't even know how to approach that. Oh, fuck it. Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out some minor physics bugs right now. Basically, we have a car that, the way that our cars work, the best way I can imagine it, is, hold on, here we go. Alright. Shoot. Help me out. Help me out. Help me out. Alright. Okay. So, our physics are alike many other physics. G, S, G, physics. Alright, GSG standing for get, set, go, obviously. Alright, so, our car, you imagine a car for a second here. As being a box. Traditionally, cars are, you know, a complex shape, right? They got a hood, they got all these things. In game development, it's often better to have the car itself, the actual rigid body of the car, unless you're making like a super tight physics sim. You have the model of the car, which is what people see, and then you have like the invisible part of the car, which is actually what the physics happens on it. So in this particular case, I want you to imagine that there's like an actual, you know, car here, and the car's got wheels and shit and all that stuff, right? But inside, there's this blue box, and this is actually where the magic basically happens, right? And so on this box, there aren't actually wheels per se. We use ray casts, so firing an invisible ray downwards, basically, at all 4 points of the rectangle. So a better way to think about it is that if I were to draw this as a an actual three-dimensional rectangle here, right? Always fuck it up in perspective. All right, if I were to draw this in, here we go. We would be firing ray casts from all. Connect those lines back there. Okay. We'd be firing rays from all sides, all corners, basically. And what these rays do is that if you imagine the wheel radius, you know, the ray sort of is the same size as what a wheel, the radius of a wheel would be. So in many senses, it acts like a wheel. So then what these rays do is they calculate a lot of things. There are rays, they essentially determine whether the car is on the ground or not. They also help provide forces in the opposite direction for things like suspension. They allow us to provide a force directly forward on this body for throttle. They allow us to provide like angular forces. So things that go to, you know, like the right, you know, in the terms of friction. So like we have like friction, we have suspension, and then over here this should probably be like fucking, I don't know, some better color. I should use red, green, and blue to be honest, the actual vector colors, but you know, there goes me. This being throttle, right? And then there's like rolling resistance, things like that. But the point is, there's no actual wheels. This is all basically a floating box that we're applying forces to. And our current problem is that when this box, for some reason, falls quite rapidly through the floor, what ends up happening is that the ray casts, you know, they don't pick up the floor immediately. They kind of clip through the floor, and then the whole box just slams into the ground, and now the car is clipping through the ground. And it's this weird failure point that it seems to be happening. And it's hard to say whether it's to do with sampling, whether it's to do with specifically like the ray cast, the way it's calculated, the way physics are calculated, the way suspension is calculated, because there's a maximum strength that the suspension can have, yada, yada, yada. It's hard to say. all that kind of contributes to it, and I'm just trying to find the source of that. So I do have a fallback that does work, which is just I place another floor just kind of right below the first floor. So if it hits the first one, it'll definitely hit this. It'll hit the second one, and that actually kind of works. I also have these things this like fallback that enforces basically ground barriers. Like if you do clip through the floor, it'll provide an upward force, but that's not quite working as intended either. So something's going wrong. And so I'm basically just trying to diagnose that. And of course, Unity. There's this bug in our current version of Unity where it can't compile this one type of shader graph sometimes. So then I have to like close the process and restart. But upgrading a version of Unity is asking for trouble. So it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't. That's what working with game engines is always like. So I was like, either the problems you know for sure about, and you know how to fix, and you just have to deal with them, or the terrifying problems that you don't know about. We are back. Okay. So now, I'm just gonna check if, basically I want to check if I'm grounded on all these wheels. So I'm gonna just debug that. So that when I spawn the car and it falls down, we just see, does it actually, do we ever register the ground? If we're not registering the ground, then I know it might be a sampling problem. Like maybe for some reason we need to do sub-sampling and like get our fixed update window tighter, maybe on a tick rate, because this is also a networked environment. So the network tick rate is kind of its own thing. And the physics is supposed to be synced to the tick rate. So the best way to think about it is, what a tick rate is you have the frame rate of the game, which is dynamic. So a dynamic, it's basically, imagine I'm rendering frames. These is like a really uniform frame rate. You know, imagine this is a game capped at like 60 FPS. So what that means is roughly each frame is taking, holy shit, am I gonna forget? Is it 11 ms? Fuck, I gotta look it up. Is it 16 ms? 60 FPS ms time. Just tell me. Holy shit, just fuck, god damn it. MS frame time. 16.6, there we go. All right, so that's 16.6, basically each of these is taking 16.6 ms. Now that's if your game is like capped at a certain frame rate. You know, if you have a more powerful machine but you cap it, it'll actually artificially enforce this frame time, basically. In reality, if I had like a dynamic frame rate, you know, if I just had an uncapped frame rate and I was letting my PC do whatever I can, it's never constant. You're never like constantly getting 240 frames or constantly getting, you know, you're gonna have like 1% lows and, you know, 95% highs and all that stuff, where it's like your frame rate at some times can be like 240 FPS, and then like it'll drop down to like 235, and then it'll sometimes drop down to like 220, and then it'll come back up to 241 or something like that, right? And what that actually looks like in terms of the engine is basically the you know, if each of these lines is a frame, it kind of looks like this. And I'm exaggerating it a ton, but it effectively kind of looks like that, where like each of these is a frame. And so you have inconsistent frame rates. That's why it's, or frame times. Because what a frame essentially is it's the engine preparing everything in order for that cross-section of the game. So it's everything. It's physics to some extent. It's mostly scripting, it's rendering, it's some memory-based shit, static, dynamic shit, all of it. It just all gets prepared in order to execute that one frame, essentially. And so sometimes that could take longer, it could take shorter. And so you can have frame times that are inconsistent unless you cap it or unless you enforce a standard. And so that's often why game developers say it's not good to just use something like delta time, because delta time is just the time between frames. And if you have stuff that just uses delta time, all the, you know, like logic, then you can have logic that you can have a game experience that changes based on the frame rate. So like imagine, let's just say for whatever reason, you had a reload. You had like a reload that the speed of the reload was based on the fixed, I don't know, it occurred during a fixed, or not fixed time, it occurred during like a delta time, basically loop. Then if you had a better frame rate, your reload might be better or worse. It depends on how it was set up, because the frame rate will affect like how essentially that the execution of that reloads sort of process occurs. So what a lot of people do, and what most game engines also have, is they have what's called a fixed update. So so this right here is what's called update. So just I'm updating something on every frame. It's like a lot of logic often gets executed in update. That's important to be, you know, on every frame. And then there's what's called fixed update. It essentially is taking this dynamic process of what happens on every frame and saying, actually, I don't care. I'm going to execute something every certain amount of seconds. So I'm going to like say, here is a certain, I'm going to do my best to draw it equally. This is a fixed, essentially, duration that I'm going to check and update stuff on. It's basically like starts a clock. And so let's say this is like, for lack of a term, this is 16.6 ms, right, between frames. Let's say this could be higher or lower. It could be more. I could say like, I want this to be 20 ms. So it's higher than the frame rate. Or I could say, no, I actually want it to be 5 ms. You know, even though there are frames that are being prepared outside of this process, I want the computer to check, like, just essentially and update stuff on this window. And so physics is often the big thing that occurs in fixed update. Because physics, you want physics to be constant and somewhat deterministic. So you want it to be like something reliable, essentially. So you want physics to be sampled and calculated on a consistent window. And that window can be bigger or smaller than the frame rate. And this is often called, essentially, a tick rate. So tick rate is, you know, essentially something that occurs on ticks, right? So whatever your tick is, tick of the clock, think of it that way. Now, network or netcode also has a tick rate. So if I have a multiplayer game, the multiplayer information sent to the server and back or to other devices is also on a tick rate, so that all things can be synchronized to a clock, like a ticking clock, as opposed to like a bunch of different games in their own situation, and it's hard to understand which information is getting synced when and all that stuff. Everything's synced up on ticks. And so because of that, netcode solutions like Photon, the one that we use, like for physics to occur on the same tick rate as the network. So if the network's on like let's say like a, 9 ms, let's say like 11 ms tick rate, which is roughly 90 hertz or 90 FPS. Equivalent if it was in frames per second, basically. Then it's going to want the physics tick rate, the fixed update window for the physics, to be on that same time, so that the physics information gets packaged along with everything else in the network, so that we don't miss it, you know? We're not like trying to get physics information that's either old or too new, you know? And what our potential problem might be is that our tick rate is not quick enough. Now, that sounds kind of weird, but if like an object is moving so fast, that object's change in speed like means that it could be like here in let's say like, oh god, I'm gonna present this. So let's say I have like this is a board. I'm do this two-dimensionally, and an object is here on the board, right? And it moves here in the span of 0.1 seconds, right? If our tick rate is equivalent, essentially, then we're gonna get this information more or less 100% accurately, especially with physics. But let's say that it moves here quicker than that. It's like moving so fast that it's because velocity is a relative thing. And let's say there's like a wall that we're trying to get it to hit in between that time. If it's moving so fast, its rate of change is faster than so it's gonna like pop up on the other side of the wall before like the physics itself has a chance to like imagine that object here. Essentially. So if we give a tighter fixed update window, we have more steps. We see like more cubes along the way. And that way we can the computer knows that it's smacked into that wall. Whereas if the window's too wide, then all the computer sees is it was here, and it doesn't have a chance to actually know that it went through. Now, the reason why I'm quite confident that our fixed update window is not the problem is because we're currently rendering the game at, let's say, 90 frames per second, right? And if you pause the game, you can see pretty clearly when the wheel itself like hits the ground and goes through. Right? So if you can see it at 90 frames, our fixed update window is actually at like 120, so it's tighter. So it's not likely that the physics is not like getting enough time to sample, because it's literally like we can see it happen, and that's happening at essentially a wider window, more or less, like rendering itself. So it's yeah, that's essentially the vibes. So we want to see, and who knows. So if we don't get this log for whatever reason, either my logging is crappy, and I need to reassess my life, or alternatively, there may be a problem. which is always a challenge, discerning either. I probably entered the scene a little early. I did. There we go. Alright, lovely. Alright, go back. I am just holding it on my face, so I don't have to put it on right now. Again, I need to be able to flip it up. Watch this amazing shit right here. Alright. Okay. Then. Alright, see, that's how it falls through, basically, right? So, the question is, do we get a log statement? Yep. So, clearly it was saying it was grounded. So, like, now it's no longer happening, but if I alright, watch this. If I bump this up, there we go. We're getting those grounded checks again. So what happens is at some point, it just goes through. So it's like some sort of tolerance. So you see how the wheels, they essentially like to buckle a little bit, right? So the rigid body actually goes through the floor a little bit, you know, and that's what the spring is. So what must be happening is that the spring's either being overwhelmed by some force, like it's not applying itself like well enough. That's why it's falling into the floor like that. Because this is what sort of should be happening, right? You get these nice little spring. You can see the spring force is actually visualized right here. Those little green lines there that are turning into red and stuff. This is the problem, basically. Like, yeah, we sort of drop it from enough of a height, it kind of like slows down, and then it falls all the way through. And so that, if I go, let's say underneath, is it only when it clips all the way through is the real question. Oh, gotta do this a bit better. So even if it clips a little bit, just when it really starts to get, maybe it could be getting pushed down. That is a possibility. Like it grounds in the other direction. I want to try a plane for a second. See if this happens on a plane too. Alright, here we go. This is entirely a two-dimensional thing. Okay, yeah, it's gonna fall through a plane too. Alright, so this isn't like some issue where the collider's pushing it out on one side or something like that. This is happening pretty frequently. That's it right there. It's like this, it's like, I think basically what happens is the suspension kind of gives up. Either because it gets maximally compressed, or the actual rigid body falls through the floor and prevents it from kind of getting there, you know? So, let's see, excuse me, Miku. Increase. I want the spring strength. Let's add like 2 zeros to that. Ah! My bad. So if I just increase the spring strength, it's kind of weird. I wonder why it moves down. Whoa! Holy shit. The springs might be might push in the wrong direction. It could be the damper. That's interesting though. Alright, let me... Photon... Fusion... What was the other one? Wait. Why are they both spawning falling? Fuck it. It's not how it should be. Alright. Scene? Alright, come on, help me out. There we go. Alright, let's get a... Bro, why? Why are you spotting all the way over there? Oh. Is it because the floor doesn't... I don't even know. Alright, well. I gotta do it with my headset on. It's a bummer. Okay, so... Spawn me a skateboard, please. Alright, thank you. That's all I need. wicked. It's funny how it just slides too, and it's like that. Okay, so if I turn up the spring, just drop it normally. Okay. Turn up one rung. Okay, one more rung. That's interesting. It like, I think there's a downward force applied to it or something going on. So if I take the top spring down, right? Okay, yeah, I got a really stiff car. Eventually, it always still catapults through, right? I wonder... It is letting me drop it from higher, though, so that's what's... That's the Quest 3, yes. That is the Quest 3 Pro Max. That is the Quest 3. Good to see you, man, by the way. This is the weird shit. Once I get... high enough, it's like the car pushes itself down. I wonder if that's like, that shit is crazy to me. The car takes flight. So let's have a look if spring strength gets used anywhere weird in this. You should see a multiplication of spring strength essentially if it gets used anywhere. So I was adjusting basically spring strength. So we have these like ray casts that help us calculate the springiness of these fake springs that we have basically. And the problem that we're trying to deal with is essentially when we drop the car from any sort of meaningful height, sometimes the car will just clip through the ground and the wheels will clip through the ground and nothing, and like there's basically the suspension doesn't support the car. And I'm trying to figure out why. I'm trying to figure out, was it a sampling issue? Did the springs never, like, did it never detect the ground? Did it never do anything like that? It's detecting the ground. We're getting like an initial, like, hey, I'm hitting the ground, and then it just pushes itself through. So either the springs are failing and they're not able to push up enough and they need to do some sort of curve-based approach that allows the springs to push up like up to infinity, essentially. Or alternatively, there's a, like, alternatively, the car, like, something that may be happening is that the springs, for some reason, push down on the car when it's in the air. Like, it actually, like, pushes down on the car, and we're just not really noticing it because the forces aren't high enough. So when I crank that, the force is really high. When I dropped the car, it would like drop really fast, and I wonder if that was like the springs literally pushing down on the car, essentially. Hard to say though. Hard to say. So I just want to have a look for spring strength here. Let's see, just update suspension. How about that? Apply spring force. Yep. Okay, so spring force is spring math, calculate force damped, strength and damper, right? And we clamp that force between the maximum spring force. Now, admittedly, I just set the maximum spring force to infinity because I just wanted to see what the fuck that does. Because it's just we're just I know what it does, but you know what the effect of changing it to infinity does. So So yeah, but this is not this maximum spring strength. That's different. So force direction, force position, okay. Spring hit normal, right? It's where the thing hit. So it's possible that maybe if I'm, the fact that I hit upward at some point and it's facing downward is how I, that could be it. Nah, it doesn't really make sense. Well, the spring hit normal. Fuck, dude. Alright, hold on. It could be pointing in the wrong direction, actually. Could be pushing it down. Alright. Well. Let's see. Calculate force damped. So this is normal. So it's offset minus rest distance minus current distance, offset times strength, velocity times damper. So essentially what this math is that it's when the spring is being compressed, it's whatever the distance it rests at, so wherever the normal distance it should be, versus where it currently is, where it's moved to. So where it's moved to, and then that creates an offset. That offset is multiplied with whatever our spring strength is. So that's whatever that offset is, we multiply it to create a force in the other direction. Essentially some sort of like Newton's third law type shit with a little bit of like give. And then you minus that ultimately by how fast it's moving. And then whatever your damper is, the damper being like the thing that smooths the force, that you're not like boing, 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 you know, it's not perfectly elastic. And the damper could be something that's holding it up. The damper could be too high, but we're within the normal ranges of what this vehicle controller should be. So that's this whole thing about it pushing down. Maybe because normally you calculate this force direction based on the wheel, like just that direction of the wheel, because the wheel can only move up or down essentially in that sense in regards to suspension. It can only move up or down, right? So the only way you like really should calculate that is just going on its own axis, more or less, and then apply that. You know, if the car is sideways, the wheel is going to be, you know, moving that way, right? It's fine. We've changed it up a little bit. We basically raycast down to the surface. We get the normal of that surface and we apply it in that direction, you know, which theoretically is a more accurate measurement, because if I'm going up something like weird, right, some sort of weird like shape essentially, the normal of that shape, like of those faces, is gonna like always point essentially in the most accurate direction. So then me looking at that normal is not a bad place to, you know, consider my direction of force. But that could be fucking some things up for some reason, because it could be like when we're already above the ground, it decides to apply it straight down as opposed to straight up. But the normal should be pointing in a direction, so it'd be finding that. Oh, so we gotta figure some shit out. How long am I doing game dev? It depends by game dev in the sense of professionally versus personally. I did it in college a lot, in VR specifically. But you know, when I say game dev, I had student projects that were effectively games and had a lot of game logic, and then I had a lot of courses where I was making little games for homework and stuff. Professionally, it is really this past year, 2 years. So, not that long. Comparatively, I am a noob. There's some absolute heavy hitters. So, we've watched a lot of talks from a lot of veterans who have dealt with this exact issue, and we're in a similar ballpark. It's just we have this sort of weird behavior, and I think a lot of that is because this vehicle controller isn't exactly ours from the ground up. You know, we found an asset and have built off of that. So we've basically have this vehicle controller that's made by these great guys that we saw in the asset store, because it followed essentially the structure that we've seen in most tutorials and talks and videos with raycast and everything like that. So it's clear the guy essentially did the same thing. He looked at all those things and made a controller that jives with that. So we're like, all right, that's a great starting point. And either in our edits, we've gone potentially a little bit wrong, or there's a blind spot in the original version that just doesn't handle the situation where the car is like conceivably off of the ground for a long amount of time. Because, you know, you can have games where you have suspension and stuff, but you're never really like having to handle the car falling from the sky a whole lot or something like that, you know? Where the suspension could fail, because suspension does fail in the real life, and that's also totally an option, is that the suspension for some reason is just kind of failing. You know, it's freaking out, and it's failing because the car's too heavy. Because think about it, Newton's third law, right? Like the equal and opposite forces and all that. As I say as I forget the actual wording of the law, but essentially the premise is very simple, right? If I'm a rock and I fall on the ground, I enact a force on the ground downward, right? And then the ground enacts a force upward. And if it's in most cases, like if it's a perfectly, well, elastic is the wrong word, but maybe elastic is the right word. If it's a perfectly elastic collision, these forces are identical. Yeah, action reaction, which is Newton's third law, right? There's an equal and opposite reaction to an initial action, right? I'm thinking about the conservation of momentum. That was my problem. Like elastic and inelastic collisions. But anyway, with springs, you know, springs are designed to give, right? So they're designed to allow a car not to hit the ground like a rock. So essentially, it absorbs, it absorbs this upward force, essentially, and compresses, right? So it ultimately like limits the amount of force applied up the chain, right? So that this force is enacted on the spring, and less force is actually enacted on the car, right? Now, because then as the spring is compressing, it's providing more of a force back downward. So it's like it's pushing against the thing that's pushing against it, and that pushes away the car, right? So what can happen though is that, you know, springs have a maximum, right? If a spring is rated for, let's say, I don't even know the numbers, but let's just say a spring is rated for 1,000 newtons or something like that, which I know is absurdly low. Or maybe it's not absurdly low. I can't remember. A kilonewton. It could be really high, actually. So let's say it's rated for 1,000 newtons, right? And you provide 1,500 newtons on the spring's going to fail. And what a failing spring just looks like is it just crunches down, basically. It hits its limit, and then you get a shock of like 500 newtons directly to the, you know, to the car chassis, and it's like we hit the floor, and now we feel that force. In this particular case, you have the ability to move through the floor. So if the spring fails, the spring can actually just clip through the floor, which is what's bugging me, because there's no collider here. There's no actual object. It's just we're trying to enact forces back on this floating box, basically. And so if the spring fails, the floating box just is gonna hit the floor. It doesn't have enough force to push it back up. But the sort of downstream effect of that is we have these rigid bodies that are positioned down here now, and they're trying to fire and be like, hey, where's the floor? But there's no fucking floor. So it's like, it's trying, and it can't see anything, right? And that's our problem. So that's where we're like, I don't know, figuring things out. We have this backup script that essentially was called enforce ground limits, which the idea was initially, if you're below the ground, we have a raycast that's like here, and we fire it. And if this hits ground, we're like, oh, the wheels must be below the ground. Let's jack this shit up. But that was actually not positioned here. It was more like positioned here. So if it got deep enough, it wouldn't work. So my thought process is, oh, what if I switch it and I fire it upward? And if it hits the ground upward, then we know that we're in the ground and we need to fucking get up there. Problem is that, for lack of a better term, that's just not working. I don't know. I'm still trying to suss out why, because maybe I'm inside a collider that has like an area, so you are hitting it. I don't know. But maybe I can do like an airborne check. So if I'm airborne, I just always check in both directions. In like essentially the radius of the wheel. And just see. It's hard to say. I gotta figure shit out. So that's part of our problem. So the raycast thing, so spring hit normal. Is essentially, it's the normal of the surface, which I don't know if that's the right thing. It might be, though. Thing is, explain why it's red. I don't know. All right, let me go color.red. Like, when do these raycasts turn red? Because that is happening. Yeah. So theoretically, the normal should be perfect, right? On paper, intuitively in my mind, it's actually very elegant. Traditionally, you do it locally on like just the position of the wheel and like the actual axis of the wheel, because wheels don't suddenly do this or that, unless you have like crazy wheels, right? So they're always up and down. So in 3D, to your point, if this was a 3D box, a normal is you take one of the faces of the box and then the normal points in a direction. And normals are really valuable because it tells the GPU, like, this is a side to render. Maybe you have double-sided things with two normals, one pointing up, one's pointing down. It also is relevant to physics, if you have something that has normals on one side and not the other, if it has a collider, especially like a mesh collider, the normals will only the collider will only apply to the faces like in the direction of normals. So if I'm inside that object, that I'm not inside that collider. I'm just like I'm now avoiding the actual essentially the fucking shit, basically, for lack of a better term. Pardon my language, the colliders. Whereas like a normal box collider has a volume and it pushes stuff out. But so in this particular case, if imagine the wheel, the raycast hits this surface, we just say, okay, what's the normal of the surface? Let's apply our spring back in that direction, which is intuitive, right? Because if this is like the back side of a car, right? Hold on, let me do this right. Well, to some extent, box colliders actually have a volume. So like a normal box collider, which is a component, like that, it's double-sided, and so it has like a volume. So it'll push things out from inside of it. But if I remember correctly, a mesh collider can be normal dependent. So it can just be like these sort of like planar colliders that are as thin as the So imagine this is a car and these are the wheels, right? And it's driving on this like steep slope, right? So in this particular case, if I were to push down on the car here, right? The raycast is going to fire here, right? And then it's in, okay, here's the surface normal of this is pointing that way, right? So let's just apply this force essentially back in this direction. And that so happens to line up with the wheel. Now, if you do it just locally on the wheel axis, you probably get the same result. But, you know, there's intuition here, right? If I'm on a slope thing, it's almost a more precise measurement to like conform your force to the actual orientation of that face. Right, because it's just more accurate. It is more accurate information. If this was on a flat surface, it seems somewhat intuitive. But if this was like rounded, right, and I had a wheel like this, you know, this rounded surface is actually a ton of little faces. You know, it's a ton of these little boxes, and each of these little boxes has got as a normal, basically, right? And so in reality, it's more like kind of, you got these arrows that are pointing in slightly different directions. And so on complex stuff like this, it kind of makes sense to say, okay, let's take these normals into account because that'll ultimately give us a really, really accurate, you know, match of where we are. But it could be screwing us up for some reason. I don't know why it would, but it could be. Because let's just say for whatever reason, the normal's pointing downward. You run into an object where the normal's, and then it collides with it and it's pointing downward. Now it's gonna push you that way. That's not good. So, yeah, that's where like the flaw could be in that. And that's what I think might be happening is that, like, basically, all right, here we go. Ready? So you have a box collider. Shit. All right. These things actually have thickness, right? Let me blow them up, right? You can see they have thickness. They're little things, right? All right. So this is a box collider. It's got volume, right? But what a box collider really is just a box with double-sided faces. So it's got normals pointing in both directions, up and down. And so the box has like essentially a volume now because if you can bounce on the inside and the outside of it. So what the reason is Unity uses this to, like, if you have two colliders inside each other, they'll push each other out, basically. It'll know that it's inside as well as outside. And what I'm thinking is happening, maybe, and this could be an imperfect knowledge of box colliders, is that because we're checking the normal of this face, the raycast gets low enough because it'll while it's compressing, it'll clip a little bit and stuff like that. It's not perfect. It like goes through that first layer a little bit, and it gets underneath it, and then it says, "Wait a minute, the layer's now pointing downward." So let's push. You know, like let's push down, and we're gonna push into it. Because that's where the spring force needs to go that way. Instead, we're going to push on the rigid body. I don't know. I don't think that seems a little bit wild to be happening. And it seems like I'm like, that's some pseudoscience there. Some pseudo game dev. But when I've blown the cube up to be bigger, the same stuff happens. And then when I make it a plane, so incredibly thin, the same stuff happens. Like essentially zero thickness, the same stuff happens. So that's what's leading me to believe that maybe we're like somehow getting a moment where we like collide and it's like push it down. So the normal calculation might be incorrect, but I am reserving judgment. So my next step is to maybe debug that in the direction of the normal. So like get logs for the spring normal direction, and if I ever see it go negative or like somehow an inversion of what it just was, then I'll know, oh fuck, we're pushing down now. So that is my next thing. So now I can remove this. Yeah, it's interesting. All right, so now I'm going to go to the cast spring method, which is actually where we find all this information. God fucking damn it, bro. Help me out. There we go. All right. No, it's kind of just from high school physics. A little bit from game dev too. I mean, like you learn it, you pick it up about how the physics engines work, but because physics engines aren't, it's not like simulating real world physics. It's sort of an approximation of physics that takes a lot of optimization into account to take what is a very complex process and try and simplify it as much as possible. Physics engines, no two are really the same. You know, PhysX versus Havoc, which is more of like an out-of-the-box physics engine, versus I think Frostbite has its own physics engine in the actual engine. I'm sure it does. Versus the engine that's in Crytek, or Crytek's physics engine, or all this shit. They're all slightly different. They're all in many cases broadly similar. They all have similar core functions. They'll all have colliders and raycasts and things like that you can use, but those things at the execution level may be slightly different. So Unity's physics engine, for instance, is non-deterministic across multiple platforms. And what that means is determinism is that it's predictable, in the sense that if I am getting this result, I can essentially predict the next result with absolute precision. And to an extent, it's like, so an object moving through space with no other forces applied to it, right, is deterministic, essentially, because with no other forces, and it's just got a velocity moving in one direction, if I know what its velocity is, I'll know where it's going to be for infinity, because again, there's no other variables at play. In Unity with PhysX, if I'm on one platform, like let's say the Oculus Quest, the way that the physics engine essentially compiles in the little imperfections it has with floating point and precision, all that stuff, presents a consistent determinism on the Quest platform. But where things start to get a little rattly is with what's called floating point imprecision. So floating points, let me give you a dictionary definition here. So a floating point, here we go. So the best way to think about it is a decimal. So it's a string of digits. So like fucking anytime you see a decimal, most often in game engines, it has to have a floating point. So there's all these different formats. There's fucking 16-bit, 32-bit, 64-bit, 128-bit, 256-bit. That are all these different floating points, and they all provide a different level of precision because you can get a more number. Like, there's like more decimal points you can account for in the memory of the machine, essentially, right? Now the problem with floating points is that in game engines and stuff like that, the more you get like 0.000000000 like 1 versus 0.00000000011, those two numbers are different because one is more precise than the other. So on a certain platform, it might only have floating point precision up to a certain degree. The other platform might have more, might have less. And so it's in tiny little microscopic changes that really means nothing. And, but yes, essentially, yeah. In a tiny little, like, it has a certain number of significant figures is the best way to think about it. Yeah, exactly. In a tiny amount of change, it really means nothing. But if you have like thousands upon thousands upon thousands and like huge numbers, Like if you get to big distances or big values, those imprecisions become more significant because you're not dealing in like 0.001, you might be dealing in millions, and those are still floating points, right? Just because it's like, it can be like in front of the decimal point or after, it doesn't really matter. Like, so it's just significant figures is really what you're considering. And so like that's why in game development you don't often want to have an object that is like millions of miles away, because the further you get away, the more like the bigger your floating point numbers essentially just get. Like transforms are done in floating points. So these numbers here, position, rotation, and scale, those are floating points. So if I'm like 1,000,000 meters away, like 1,000,000.1 and 1,000,001 and like all these things start to become like kind of unstable, to the point where if you play a lot of single player games that are supposed to allow you to explore like a universe in a spaceship or something like that, the craziest thing is that more often than not, it's not the spaceship moving through the universe, it's the universe moving through the spaceship. So they'll move the whole world around the spaceship, and the spaceship doesn't actually move, literally, in the engine. Now, to you, it seems like it does, but in reality, in the game engine, they're moving this whole world because they'd rather maintain the precision of the spaceship at 000 than risk having that spaceship like have all this imprecision. So that's really fascinating. But so the problem with floating point imprecision in physics, especially for PhysX, the Unity's inbuilt physics engine, is that across different platforms, it doesn't maintain continuity because you're dealing with different floating point precision. So if I have a build of this game in PC versus Quest, there's a chance that those two platforms perform differently in regards to physics. And ideally, you want to keep those differences small enough that you can mask those differences in something called like an interpolation algorithm, like a lerp or a slurp or or even potentially like clamp values and all that kind of stuff between a certain range, and accept the imperfections between those ranges because it's not so bad. You mean like Minecraft at 30 million starts to get all glitchy and broke? Yeah, essentially, to an extent. Minecraft is unique because it's a voxelized engine and things are slightly different there, but the premise is essentially the same for the most part. But yeah, so it's wacky shit. So I don't even know where that was related to us, but I went on a total tangent there. But yeah. So let me find where the spring is getting cast here. Alright, we're gonna get utils.debug wheel direction cast direction spring hit normal. Alright, there we go. So debug log, yeah. Alright, sorry, log. What am I doing? Alright. Do I know about Pokemon and packs? To an extent, yes. I was just wearing it. I have a Snorlax, like, jacket that I really like. Well, okay, it depends. What pack? Like, there are pretty valuable packs, and sometimes if you're in the resale game, it's worth just keeping the pack in itself. And because once the pack is open, the pack loses its speculative value, and you may not hit on something inside it. But I'm always pro opening the packs, man. Like, get after it, get the cards, you know. Keeping sealed packs, maybe for continuity and lore for sure, but as a resale game, I don't know. I'm not that diehard. To be honest, I'm not even that involved to begin with. I just like the scene is fun. Super electric breaker pack. All right, let's see what they're going for. So, just the individual pack, right? You didn't get the entire box. Yeah, $329. Yeah, well, it looks like you lost about you lost about $2 in value when you bought it. Depreciating asset, for one. But what's the potential charge? Let's see. Spelled. All right. Clements Witt, Durant, Gravity Mountain, Pikachu X. That is a sick card, not gonna lie, actually. The foil, $56. The Melodic X, 70. Alright. This is what you're looking for. This is what you're looking for right here. I mean, it has gone down in value. Holy fuck. But, so show me the money. It's a great card too, I'm not gonna lie, I like it. Alright. Let's... What the hell am I doing? Oh, yeah. If at any point this normal seems to point in a different direction, then we'll know. But then again, I could fuck it up because I wonder how it logs this value, actually. I wonder what value I actually get. Do I get like an actual positive or negative value? Fuck. Come on, boys. Alright, there we go. Okay. I think this might be our problem. We're getting some negative values here. Well, it's only that slippery because it's in the floor. It's in the floor. That's why it's got no traction, because it's in the floor. So if I pop it out... There we go. We're good. Alright, so This is what it should look like. 0, 0, 0, 0, right? Drop it too much. There we go. I wonder if it actually does push down. Is that the problem? Because it's the north. Because I mean, but then it'd be poor. Yeah, holy shit. -1 in the Z. Now, okay, if I... Well, we would know that for a fact if the Y was negative. So if this Y value here was negative, we would know for a fact that it's pushing through the floor. The problem is that it's not the Y that's sometimes 100% negative. You get these values where the Z here, for instance, is negative, right? And so the Z being negative is, it's like, that's making me think that it's like pointing diagonally and then like kind of pushing it down. Okay. Hold on. Let me ask, I'm gonna, you know, this is a decent ChatGPT question because it might help me visualize it. Or this might be too abstract for chat to understand. Let's see what 4.0 can think. Actually, let's make this a question for, O3 Mini. All right. I have a planar normal that is pointing directly upward, with normal values of 0, 1, 0.0, 1.0, 0.0. I have a force being applied at in the normal direction of 0.0, 1.0, negative. Well, let's get an actual value. How about that? Yeah, DeepSeek's great. AI.com. DeepSeek is dope. We'll see what it thinks. Can you illustrate the difference in direction and orientation of these forces? That is providing a force pointing directly upward. Here we go. Yeah, I don't give a fuck about... I don't give a shit about Python showing it to me. Show this to me in a... like, visual representation. You fucking... Alright. Run Python online. I hate online fucking IDEs, but here we go. Right. No map plot, right? Great. Fucking... yeah, damn it. I don't want to import dick. You bastard. half of these don't work and half of them are scams. I know that, but. Alright, here we go. Fuck it. I'll run it myself. Alright, here we go. That's so oh, holy fuck, they actually did it 3D. Holy shit. Okay. Wow. Okay, whoa. Well done. I did enable reason. Okay, so that is still pointing upwards. It's just, it's like kind of freaking out, but it's pointing upwards. It shouldn't push it into the ground, at least, for sure. So as long as that Y value's positive. All right, let's try this again. Let's just see what values we get here. There we go. There we go. So this is, it's getting almost perpendicular. So maybe that is part of it, right? Because it turns from like it's fascinating. What the fuck's going on here? Oh wait. 39, 58, 40, 30. So that's normal. That's doing great. And then that's interesting. Wait. All right. The normals I don't think is the problem. Because you can see here that it hits these normals perfectly aligned. Like it really just should be. It should just be going in the right direction. Now, occasionally you get some goofy shit, but like you're seeing that we're pretty much getting all these alignments correct. So it's not like it's doing some dumb, weird shit, basically. Wayo! Could be the anti-roll forces. Could be a lot of things doing this. Maybe it is the anti-roll forces. Holy shit, that could be a part of it. Potentially. Like this thing's try not to roll so it pushes itself down. Let me try that. This is fun though. All the time, man. That's why I like streaming. It helps with the process. The concept in that in software development is called rubber ducking. So usually when you see really software engineers who know what the hell they're doing, like real fucking programmers, they have these little rubber duckies on their desk. And for me, it's my little figure got here, my little homie. Or it's Kirby. I have a Kirby there. And basically, it's a common thing that they have these things so that if they're going through a problem, they talk at it like it's a human being. They'll talk at it. They'll be like, this is my problem. This is what I'm thinking. This is the problems I'm thinking about. They'll go through it as conversation. Because usually when you talk about it, then you start thinking about it, and you're thinking in a different process. You're sort of actually assessing the information a little bit more deliberately because you're saying it. I think that's the psychological theory or something like that. And then it helps you work it out. Most importantly, without having to hang up somebody else's time to be your rubber duck. But thanks to streaming, I have you all. All right, gonna go make some noodles. No worries, man. All good. Thanks for chilling. Okay. Sure. What am I gonna do? Okay. Could be anti-roll forces. Let's turn those off. Let's just try. See what happens if we... Get that off. Sweet. Got the noodles on deck. Okay, so I turned off anti-roll forces. Let us see if that changed anything. Guys, those are counteracting a lot of stuff. And I just have a... fudge! This is that damn bug. It's been getting me more and more recently. Alright. Come on, Unity. Let's get you back up to speed. Christ almighty.
truth. So she does, but instead of it being fun, it's harsh and exposing.
You're not good enough for me.
Well, that's something Tom now has to grapple with. When he chooses to finally accept that Kendall then reveals that he's given himself a comforting narrative, a safe...
You're... God damn it. Did it again. Yeah, I do. Well, it depends. Like, I sometimes I'll do things pretty easy. Sometimes I eat frozen food, but I do love cooking. 2 in a row, man. Swear to God, if I get stuck in some doom loop, I'm gonna be pissed. Am I cooked? God, I might be cooked. Ugh. I might just have to restart my computer to get back at this. Basically, there's this issue where the Shadowcaster variant like can't compile. It gets stuck in this loop. It's this known issue for my version of Unity, but it fucking doesn't want to fix itself. And usually you can avoid it by just relaunching Unity, but looks like I'm shit out of luck. So I'll probably just have to restart my computer and get after it again. And if not, I might be in bigger trouble. Bummer. Okay, wait. Just to make a note of things. We had found... Holy shit. Notepad. Where is it currently? Shit. Where's my other one? Alright. Alright, so... Normal, spring hit normal direction is not the problem. Logged and normals are showing up positive, indicating positive directional forces, i.e. no pushing down. All right. Sampling. Is not the problem. Logged that raycasts are grounding wheels before they fall through the floor. All right. The next thing we need to try was the oh yeah, right. Trying things to try. Commenting out anti-roll forces. Seems like maybe they push down on car. Car seems to push itself into grounds, potentially. Or spring just fails. Higher spring strength kind of helps. But at a point, it actually pushes the vehicle down into the ground faster. I.e. falls faster. Alright. You know what let's do? Let's run one for the lads. One for the lads, am I right, Miku? Curry's great. Katsu chicken curry is just great. My personal favorite dish from Nippon is probably to make, at least. It might be beef tongue, like I can't remember the name for it, but you just make like a miso marinade for, and you beef tongue is like really specific texture. Very good. And usually it's just a simple, you know, it's a simple fucking yaki, you know? So it's just a barbecue. So you have it with rice and vegetables and spring. Gyutan, thank you. That's the one. Which literally translates to gyu, cow, ton, tongue. I think. Gyu might be cow or beef. I can't remember. Lit. What do we got in the store? How can I waste my money? Anything. Anything that I can waste my money on. I have that one. I've already wasted my money on that. Alright, literally nothing for me to waste my money on. Great. What does this even give you? Just gives you all these skins? Are you fucking serious? Bro. Bro. I guess it's $10, so you would, it was the same price for what those skins were originally, but still clap. Alright, what do we got? That's kind of cool. Alright. I don't even really care. Why am I doing this? Power Sword Trios. I don't really... They're really chilling out the Final Fantasy fucking IP here. I do love you, Apex. It's okay. We used to main Bangalore and Bloodhound. Must have been a good time. Ooh! We're on the high tier of skill distribution, apparently. Alright. Miku, you might fuck up my performance. I don't know, we'll see. Because I am what? Oh, let me stop encoding. Let me stop the virtual camera. That's gonna save me a lot. I'll make up the difference. Miku! There we go. Figured yourself out. Why is my Discord overlay always on, dude? I keep trying to turn it off. Whatever. Alright. I gotta win this game fast. I need to you know what actually needs to happen? I need to die. Like I can't be in this game for more than 20 minutes. Like I guess it's not gonna be good. This game needs to last like 10 minutes. I can't be on if we're gonna win the game and I gotta quit, I'm gonna feel so bad. Oh, thank fucking Christ. All the 20 bombs. Thank God. We're gonna get smoked.
I'm the jump master. Trust me.
And I get to be the jump master? Great. Alright. We got TTV on our team though. That sucks. Means it's gonna be sweat.
Let's go. Allons-y.
Please, people follow us. Why did he even go here? I feel like nobody's gonna go here.
Alright. I'm at a lot.
Watch me be trash at this game. I haven't played in so long. I don't even remember the inputs. Alright. Here we go. Okay, I might as well grab this. Then.
We're already inside the ring? Damn. Think we used a good
Where was it? Oh, there it was. Whoa! Jesus Christ.
Enemy shield.
Down that one.
Get my shields back real quick. Woo! It's a bit of a little cheeky sap strafe. Oh. Whoop!
There's a new kill leader, and it isn't me. Throwing another star. Throwing frag.
The sweat!
Yo, cracked an enemy shield.
The sweat! Pouring from my frickin' pores, dude.
Sounds good. I'm positive.
Recharging shield.
Oh, shit! Cross that.
Please don't die. I don't even. Oh, thank fucking Christ.
And that's all of it.
Hey,
Good job.
hey,
Everything
found you.
hurts. I need to amp up my
What?
health.
I'm looking for
Hold on. Let me.
Reloading.
a little defense panel. Little defense panel.
Using the eject button.
Oh, we got more. Up! Christ almighty. Oh my god. Oh my word. Alright, thank God, thank God. I think we're gonna be out of this game kinda quick. I think we're okay, we're gone. Alright, we're gone. Cool. Oh no, don't re-queue, don't re-queue. Okay, thank God. Whew! Okay. Jesus Christ. I had to get one in, just, I don't know, for the boys. Because I still need to recognize that that game is alive. And that I shouldn't kill it. Just don't let me enable this overlay. I don't like the overlay. Alright. Alright, let's see who's online. Got an Megophage. It's pretty sick. Vegeta's Dev. They're all pretty good. Foxen's dope. I haven't rated Foxen in a minute. I'd be down to do that. What is he doing right now? I don't know what he's doing. He's doing some shit in Godot. Let's see. Health lost, invisibility time, on death. I keep forgetting that this shit's... It's a functional language. It fucks me up. Alright. I think we're gonna go with Foxen. Why not? Well, we gotta wait first. We gotta wait for our, Miku alarm. We got 2 minutes. 2 minutes until Miku tells us to shut the fuck up.
We'll definitely have movement. Let's see if this fixes it.
I heard schmovement. That's a good cue. All right. We're waiting. I got Invincible Me's waiting. Come on. Come on. 5:15.
What the hell?
There it is.
Where the hell's my grass?
It's the end, boys. It's the end. Thank you, Miku. Thank you for letting us know. I should get a custom sound for that shit.
Where's my grass?
Christ. Alright, well, I'll check you later, Promax. Thanks for stopping by, man. Always appreciate it. Have fun with the noodles. Deuces.